Hey guys, welcome back to Marvel Movie News. We're going to be talking about Endgame, and we're going to, just fair warning to all of you, all of the spoilers are here. All of the spoilers, we're going to be talking about them because it's review time. We've seen it, we want to talk about it, and this is your last warning. If you haven't seen Endgame, we're going to start the show and talk about it all. Marvel Movie News.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Marvel Movie News. I'm so amped for this show.
Yes.
How are y'all feeling today? Have you dried your tears yet? Mm-mm. I know that I haven't. We can still hear the booth. Christian, Xia, how are you guys feeling?
I'm still not over it yet. So I've realized that I'm not going to come to terms with this. As amazing as it was, I'm going to have to go back and start from Iron Man 1 and go through it again a few more times so that I can relive it. Otherwise, I will cry more.
And you also just saw it really late last night. So
I did.
It's very fresh
really
for you.
Fresh in my mind.
And I saw it for the second time on Friday. And I think, look, when Zach and I were here on Thursday, we had already seen it, and we wanted to talk about everything, but we couldn't.
Yeah.
And so now...
It's killing me.
That's refreshing. But seeing it a second time, I don't know about you. Zach, have you seen it 2 or 3 times?
I have now seen it 3 times.
Right. And,
3 times.
It didn't lose anything. In fact, I was able to take it in more.
All right.
And
Hold on. We got to introduce the show,
great.
Christian. I was just asking how you're feeling.
Sad.
I didn't ask for your whole review yet.
Sad, Zach.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
We're sad.
Hey guys, welcome back to a special Sunday night edition of Marvel Movie News. We have gathered here to talk about Endgame. We're going to talk about all the spoilers today. We want to get everything, and we're going to start taking questions. And this is just part 1 of our show. We had to break this up into 2 episodes this week because there's so much to dive in. Who are we, you might ask, talking about this? Well, I'm your host, Zach Wilson. This is Xia Anderson over here.
That's me.
That's Christian Bladt over there.
That's me too.
We got Colt Badeau helping us out, tweeting from the Star Jammer. And we, of course, are coming to you live from the spoiler-free zone. The spoiler-filled zone.
Super
I screwed it up. I screwed up my own joke.
Spoiler-free zone.
We are coming to you live from the quantum realm. How about that?
Nice.
That's a spoiler in and of itself. All right. So I've seen it 3 times. Christian's seen it twice. Zia's seen it once. We're representing all levels of having seen it so far.
Yeah.
Who in the chat has seen it more than 3 times? Let us know.
I expect a lot of them. But, okay, so initial reactions. Christian and I talked about our feelings just on the movie in general. But, Xia, you have to go first. What did you think of Endgame?
Okay, I loved it. I loved almost everything about it. I mean, I had tiny little, like the tiniest gripes that I then talked about afterwards and talked about and was like, okay, fine. But other than that, amazing. I mean, so much laughing, crying. I was that person that whooped in the theater. I did. I made a really loud noise because I was so excited. And then I cried. And there was the perfect balance between what you come to expect from an Avengers movie. It's funny, it's lighthearted, and then it's really, really heartfelt in other moments. They did such an amazing job doing that balancing act. So for me, just overall thoughts, so good.
Yeah, Christian, how was it the second time?
The second time, I went with my wife, and she hadn't seen it yet. So, there's a lot of, looking over, and I'm like, all right, she's crying more than I am, thank God. But there is a moment, and look, we're talking all the spoilers. There's the Tony moment when that's one of the times where I just lost. And she looked over, and I'm like, damn it, she's watching me cry, but I can't stop it. If I could, I would have. But and honestly, I don't know. I always talk about how I like to see a movie like this a second time because the first time I'm just so nervous. Even you can relax a little bit. You can kind of take it in, because it's like, okay, I know it's going to be okay, or in the case of Infinity War, not okay. But in this one, I'm like, all right, it's going to be fine. I can relax a little bit, and that way I was able to enjoy it a little more. But so it's the 3 hours and 2 minutes of every emotion that I can imagine.
Yeah, this was such a good movie. I enjoyed it all 3 times. Like I think the second time was even better than the first. I think the second time was the one I had the most fun. But like it doesn't take the amount of cheers, the grin on my face for the last hour of the movie was painful, except that it felt so good. I mean, like this is it a perfect movie? No. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we're going to dissect today. We're going to talk about the time travel, especially. I think that's the big thing that everyone's sort of dissecting is, like, how does time travel work in this world? I want to especially take a moment to examine that. We're going to talk about our favorite moments as we go through this. A lot of these, like, this movie is, like, tons of Easter eggs.
Oh my
Just
God.
like, it's like nothing but references and Easter eggs, but there's some specific fun ones I want to get into and some fun cameos and stuff. But I love this movie through and through. We already were talking about like crying. I cried. Let's start with our biggest emotional moments, because like the battle scene at the end might be like one of the best comic books brought to life sequences ever. But so obviously we've lost some people in this movie, and that's the big thing that you remember as you leave this is like guys, Iron Man, Tony Stark,
I know,
is dead.
I know.
And I wept. Like, we talked a little bit about it last episode on Thursday, like where I had like a rolling cry.
That was the rolling cry.
Yeah.
Yep,
so like
that was it.
For me, and I'm curious if my emotional moments matched up with you guys. My first like getting a little teary was early on. It was when Scott and me finds Cassie.
Yep.
And they embrace.
Yep.
I was just like, oh my God, it's so beautiful.
So I'm dead inside, so that didn't do that much for me. But it was nice. I liked it, but it didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't do any teary anything.
Almost every time I cried had to do with some kind of parent-child relationship. So that's the first one. The Hawkeye thing happens in the beginning, and also because that's Snap-related. You know, I don't know. I was just thrown off by the fact that those kids put mayonnaise on their hot dogs, so I couldn't get that upset. So, but the Cassie moment, I'm like, oh no. And the second time, same thing. I'm like, wait, I knew this. I knew she was old, and I'm still. But yeah, so that one was the first one for me too. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the big one like was obviously the Iron Man one. Seeing like Clint and Hulk's reaction to Nat was actually more impactful on me, because like her actual like death moment was so action packed, it didn't like hit the emotion, but it's like when you see the results of the death, and I think that was true on Tony's scenes as well.
Yeah.
Well, with Tony, I'll tell you what really got me when Tony died was actually Peter, Spider-Man's. Dude, bravo to Tom Holland for that, by the way, because oh my God, he did a great job. He made me more sad than Pepper coming. Yeah. Although her line about "it's okay, we're gonna be okay, you can rest," I was like, why would you do that to me? He
also has the advantage that he comes before Pepper talks to him.
Yeah.
But his is like, hey, Mr. Stark, we won. And I'm like, oh, damn it, Spidey, why are you doing this to me?
Dude,
that's when I was already upset, and that's when it reached the uncontrollable, like, all right, I can't hold this in.
Yeah, that's when the tears started.
The one that really hit me the hardest of any of those moments was the cheeseburger line. There's something like
happy,
like even the third time where like I wasn't as teary, because like I'd been through it twice already, and like it took a little more, but like I just was a waterfall when she is like, Dad, your dad liked cheeseburgers too.
I know.
In Tony's message when he says I love you 3000 at the very end, that's one of those like I couldn't keep it in. I'm like, oh damn it! Made the noise.
We're getting into all the emotional stuff up top, because it was just like that's the thing that stands out the most. But let's take a deep breath.
One other moment that made me cry, though I have to say, I'm sorry, was when Cap said Avengers Assemble and they all started running in. I cried. I cried. That was a huge emotional moment for me.
And
anyway,
that was definitely an exciting moment that led to cheers.
Yes.
But let's go back to the top of this movie, because like this is it's almost like, because there's so much in this that we almost forget at the very top. Like we sort of get like the Infinity War epilogue, and this movie did find a way to do that. Like it was sort of separated from what Infinity War is. Well, obviously it has a similar plot, but like up into like before the 5 years later part. Like, were you guys as surprised as me when they like charged Thanos like that, and within the first 20 minutes of
yeah.
the movie have defeated him.
At
Yeah.
exactly the 20-minute mark, Thor cuts off his head. Because I remember checking when I was watching it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I didn't see that coming. You know,
No.
I thought that they were going to go after him and it was going to take a while, but they got right there, and they actually beat him. You know, because he doesn't have the Infinity Stones anymore. But still, no, that's probably the last thing I expected was them to go, guns blazing, figuratively, that quickly in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when they killed him, I was like,
Oh, we're good, right?
okay.
Let's go.
So
Well, it was just like, it was Rocket's response in that moment. Like, what did you do?
Yeah.
Because they're screwed. Like, he snapped the stones out of existence, or he snapped them into infinitesimal atoms.
Yeah.
So they couldn't be found. And yeah, I mean, that lays the stakes up. It's like, oh, how are we going to fix this? Like, we just got Tony back in like a really sweet sequence, and like, Captain Marvel is now on team. I like that this was how it, like, 'cause for the last year, everyone's had their like, well, why didn't they just do this to beat Thanos and like chop off his arm using Doctor Strange's portal? It's like nobody had time to think of these plans. You guys had months to come up with these plans, sitting in your nerd dens at home. But like they just had to react and like try to get it off of them as best they could. This was okay. We had time to think about it. Here's what we do. We have a guy with a big axe. We just hold him down and then just like out of nowhere, surprise, chop hand off.
Yep.
So like,
and they did
and
very
they did
quick
it
work of it.
super efficiently.
Yeah.
But then doesn't work out that way. So we cut to 5 years later, which I know in at least a couple of the screenings I went to, it was just like there was an audible
Yeah.
like surprise. I really liked the way, one of the things that I really loved was how they handled showing us the world that the snap created. The completely cold open on Clint and his family. Very human devastation, not just like, oh, well, the battlefield got hit. Because that's what we'd mainly seen is the battlefield.
Right.
Yeah.
But the scene with Cap in that discussion group.
Yeah.
The support group.
That was a nice touch.
Yeah.
It really was. And it was because if you think about it, that's what would happen. So many people lost partners, and then it's a weird thing of like, it's like your partner dying. You didn't break up. You weren't planning on this happening. You were planning on staying with them. And then it's like, oh, suddenly you have to move on. And I like that they showed also just different cars left wherever they were left and the ships everywhere. I like that they also showed that, because while there are still half of the population, that's still a lot of people. That's still a lot of people living in the world, but there's still so many people that you lost.
I love the look that kid gives Scott when he's like, what happened here? And the kid's like, just
stupid
idiot, and he's just like, how could you even ask that? You know?
Yeah. Well, one thing that's important to note, and like, it was so subtle that I missed it the first time. Not that I didn't know it, but it didn't even occur to me. Is that so? In that scene, there are two cameos.
Yes.
In that top thing, you have Joe Russo, one of the directors, is playing, and you have Jim Starlin.
Yes.
Who is the comic book writer who created Thanos.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool little like nod to bring him in. But the interesting thing in that scene is Joe Russo is technically playing the first like outed gay
Openly gay
character.
character, yeah.
Like openly, thank you. That's the right word. The first openly gay character on screen in a Marvel movie. This is not to say that other characters aren't gay, but it's never been mentioned. It's never been explicit, and they just dropped it right up near the top.
Oh, I loved it. I thought
And
it was perfect.
it was a cool, perfect way of doing representation without like making it a big deal. It literally was like blink and you miss it, but it was there.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I feel like that's exactly. I've talked about this before. That's exactly the way I personally think it should be handled.
Yeah, because it took somebody posting an article about it for me to even realize like, oh yeah, he was openly gay. It's just like I heard it, I moved on,
Yeah.
and that's what I think. Hopefully, people are taking away from that. It's just it's more normal.
Well, just it becomes a normal thing when someone's like, yeah, when a man says, yeah, my boyfriend, you're like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, and,
Like,
and I don't know. It
great.
also, I mean, as you said, that scene does so much to tell us the just overall mood of the world 5 years later, which is, he cried in a salad. I made it to dessert, and it's like, well, yeah, we all cry all day. That's what we do. So, it's cool on that level, and it's also just like it's such a quick way to be like, Oh yeah, everybody's miserable. Okay,
Yeah.
now let's go see what the Avengers are up to.
Now
And
we know.
then we get into the Avengers and the aptly named time heist.
Yes.
I loved that. I love Scott's time heist.
The time heist was so much fun. That's the movie is the time heist.
Yes.
And so I would say that that's like the middle 90 minutes is the time heist, and then you have the battle. So up top, real tiny Easter egg that I caught that like I only saw the third time because I saw it on IMAX.
Oh,
on this
wow.
giant screen. Scott's locker is like where the van is kept is 616.
Oh, nice. All right, I definitely didn't catch that.
Tiny throwaway thing. So we could dissect this movie scene by scene, but we don't have time. Sundays are real cramped here at the studios, and so we've only got like 20 minutes left or so. So I want to make sure that we have time to talk about all this stuff. And this is also why our Thursday episode will be part 2 of this review.
Yes.
So we go on the time heist. We go through all of the Marvel movies. What did you guys think of this idea of doing like a tour of the MCU?
Oh,
like,
I loved
we have
it.
all of our discs in front of the DVDs.
No, it's such a great homage to the past 10 years that we've had. And again, like I said, I'm going to go back and rewatch them anyway, but it doesn't matter because just even that little bit was just so nice to go back and sort of see that. I have to say though, just from I need to say this from the top. Fat Thor might be one of my favorite things in the whole entire world. The Fat Thor / the dude. Oh my God.
Thorbowski. Yeah,
Yes.
I love Thorbowski.
Oh my God, that was possibly one of my just favorite things about the movie. Okay.
I loved the fact that it was like I think you said this on Thursday's show that this is like a series finale, and in a lot of those you would visit things you'd seen before. There's a lot of ways. One of the shows they mention is Quantum Leap. There's a lot of ways, believe it or not, this movie is like the series finale of Quantum Leap. We'll talk about that later on Marvel TV Weekly, but I swear to God it is. And just visiting past things, I think it was the most fun when they visited the first Avengers movie because just interacting with themselves. And the elevator scene,
Captain America's butt.
yeah, America's ass, and getting Cap to say "Hail Hydra." I'm like, oh come on! It's like, how much did you cram into that sequence? So it was so much fun to do that, and then we get the added bonus of going back to the '70s. So I love all of that.
I mean, the movie, what it was able to accomplish with that was, and why I compared it to a series finale, is that it was able to give us, like, as fans, as people who have spent so much time with these characters, is able to give, it felt like we were all acknowledged. Like, the amount of time we'd spent rewatching these movies over the years was worth it. Like, because it all, like, connected. It all made sense. It was all part of the same narrative. And like it's never been, these movies connect and they rely on each other. And Civil War brought all kinds of different characters together, and Age of Ultron and the original Avengers. But this was like, no, it all matters. It was all part of one thing. And now like our characters are even going and rewatching their top moments. Even Thor: The Dark World was super important to this movie, which I think is
wasn't that bad?
You always
was
know.
it?
That's true.
But it was so much fun, and like, I mean, like they really did a tour of everything. The one that for me, and like I've talked to a few other Agent Carter fans, and like, because like look, we got to see Peggy again, and that was really nice. But like the one moment where you could tell who in your audience is also a TV fan, who's a deep MCU person, is when they reveal Edwin Jarvis.
That was amazing.
Driving the car, like, do we know that man Jarvis? And like, this is notable because that is the very first time a TV character, a character who originated on a Marvel television show, has appeared in a movie. It literally never happened until now.
Wow.
There are characters that started in the movies and then went to the TV shows. There's plenty of those, but this is the first time it went the other direction. It's the first time the movies officially acknowledged a TV show. And that, as somebody who's like covered Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I covered Agent Carter on AfterBuzz TV, like for years I've watched all of these shows in depth. And now, like, it was like, So, like, I cheered. I was one of the only people cheering in all 3 screenings. But, like, it was nice. yeah, there's so many things that we could talk about, like Korg and Meek with
Loved seeing that.
That
yeah,
was-
so you
yeah.
get the Ragnarok catch up, you get Tony Pepper and now Morgan Stark.
Yeah.
Not the evil Tony's cousin Morgan Stark from the comics, but now you get this adorable child.
She was pretty cute.
She was very
I
cute.
don't say that about a lot of
Yeah,
kids.
you hate kids, but
Yeah.
no, I
but
found
she was
her. I
the
found
cute
her. Yeah,
one.
she was great, and yeah, no, she's very smart and sneaky, and you're like, oh yeah, that's totally Tony Stark's kid.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
she's like, yeah, I can get a nice pop out of this. You know, so I thought she was great. Yeah,
And I did, you know what? I actually did really like that scene of Tony and Pepper talking on the couch and how she, basically knew that he wasn't going to be able to not do this.
yeah.
Because
Once he
she's-
figured it out.
Yeah, she's like, we got lucky, but not everyone else did. She's like, I know you're not going to be able to forget about this. And I enjoyed that type of support that you get. From
I
her.
find that to be the most surprising thing about the movie is going in, you knew that there was going to be a time travel element. At least I did. You know, you could tell
Figured, yeah.
from the quantum realm and all that. What I didn't expect was no, bring everybody back right now. That the mission wasn't undo what happened. It's like, well, this has to stay the way it is, and that just surprised me. I thought Vision would be back. I thought possibly Loki would be back. I thought
Gamora?
Yeah, right. I thought exactly.
we were gonna
I
get
didn't
Gamora.
realize that was going to stay so permanent. So I thought that was very surprising and impressive, and that the fact that they pulled it off and made it work was all the more impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, so this is a big question that a lot of people have, and we'll talk about favorite moments, and like, so I want to talk about battle in a minute, but I want to make sure that we have time to talk about time travel in this episode, because the time travel is the big thing, and it's the big question that we need to address. How does it work in this universe? And I think I cracked it more or less, and if you guys will permit me, I'll explain how I believe this theory all adds up, but there's still lingering questions. So I know we crapped all over Back to the Future in this movie, but I'm going to use Back to the Future as the best way to announce. And like, it sort of is like, you got to really pay attention to what the master is saying when she talks about it. But like, if you think about Doc Brown's like way of describing it, where it's like, this is our timeline, and then this is the Biff timeline in Back to the Future 2. It's just that both of those timelines always still stay existing. It's that black branch that that the ancient one. Did I say the master?
You did.
The ancient,
The ancient
one,
one,
is showing off.
Your Doctor Who is coming out.
Yeah, the ancient one. It's that black. It's that
Yeah.
one. Both of those still exist. So the original timeline is not affected when you change time like that, and that black branch starts a new reality entirely. But if you go back and replace everything and fix everything you changed, it will effectively merge the two back into one.
Right, which is what Bruce theorizes when he's
Yes.
talking to the ancient
Yeah.
one.
Yes. However, this is where it starts to get a little messy, because even if you go back and like replace the stones where they went, stuff is still different in that reality, right? Like
Yes.
just by like Captain America being there and like whispering Hail Hydra to those Hydra agents, do they now, and like, okay, that could just be a different reality. It's the ultimate universe of this thing where things just went a little bit different here in these weird little points, except, and that would be totally acceptable. Loki disappears in that reality with the
Tesseract.
the Tesseract. But when Steve at the end is now old Steve, and that was a super sweet moment.
By the
and I
way,
love
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I like got teary again when he started dancing with Peggy.
Yep.
So beautiful. But the beautifulness of that aside, it implies that he just stayed there for all those years. Do you guys think that, because like, does that mean that he stayed in this reality's timeline?
That's what I thought, because his endpoint was that reality at that time. Like, he knew where to go and where to be and when to be to meet them again. So I'm assuming yes.
Yeah, and I think they always did a really good job being cagey about who Peggy ended up with. You know, there's the mention of it was somebody that Cap saved or whatever, but I mean those could all be lies.
Well, here's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
It was somebody that Cap saved that day when he first jumped out of the plane and
Right.
like became truly Captain America. And in a way, wouldn't you say that the first person he saved was Steve Rogers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that's a clever line that they came up with that like they said over the years and just kept like every time they said it, they would just like turn to each other and be like,
they don't even know.
so.
Yeah.
and they're like, he looks a lot like Steve Rogers. They're like, thank you for the compliment, friend.
Yeah, but I think all these things happen, and look, any time travel, the way they talk about time, when Rhodey and Scott are talking about time travel, it's like all the rules of time travel from previous fiction would make you think, if you mess with any of this stuff, you do create alternate timelines and alternate realities. Most significant is 2014, Thanos goes to the future and dies. He does not get replaced in 2014. But then to illustrate that this is how that time, the flow of time doesn't work the way that we think it does, the way that the Ancient One explains it, is when Nebula shoots her past self in everything else you've ever seen before. Present Nebula would die too.
Right.
But she doesn't. So that's when they're telling you, it's like, yeah, time travel doesn't work the way that, that other things have told you.
It would have been clean if Steve hadn't stayed that way. Unless this is a different Steve and we're in a branch reality to begin with.
Oh, boy.
And we've been watching a different branch reality. And like, this is where it's like, as much as I love this movie, the time travel is messy.
It's very messy.
It is, yeah.
But after the first time I saw it, I was just I was actually like angry about it, and then the second time it's like, okay, they do explain it. I just don't like the explanation because it doesn't mesh with the other things that I've seen before.
I mean, I like it, except the Steve question of it.
Steve question is huge.
The Steve is the only part that breaks it. Everything else, to me, it works in my brain. It's a different reality. It's a different timeline. It doesn't change anything that's happened here. It just changed that different other universe. It's a multiverse theory.
Right.
That you didn't really time travel. You just went to a different multiverse. But now we have lots of questions because Steve showed up. That said, the amount of nerd fun I'm having with Steve Rogers living this alternate life with Peggy.
Yeah.
Because like, picture for a moment, there's a day when Peggy's like, oh, this is my niece, Sharon. And she hands the baby to Steve and he goes, oh, this is weird. Because it's even weirder now that theoretically Sharon grew up knowing this, whatever Steve Rogers was name he was going by all these years. Which maybe it was Roscoe Simons, which is another Easter egg. He's wearing the name Roscoe on his uniform when they go back to 1970. Also a sequence loved because it had Hank Pym, an Agent Carter reference. It was so full of amazingness. But that was
and John Slattery and everything I wanted.
Roscoe Simons is a different Captain America who was while Steve was Nomad.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right, so that's the time travel. Unfortunately, this is why we had to make this a 2-part episode because we only have a few minutes left.
Yeah.
So real quick, I want to just talk about the battle. Like we could talk about the music and how they use cues from like every Marvel movie. Yep. We could talk about the fact that like they put the classic Ant-Man helmet in that one scene, and I'm going to drop it just right now. We got Budapest references. We got like so many things. Oh my God. Like Thor just does the metalhead. All right. How loud did you guys cheer when Cap picked up Mjolnir?
Oh my God, yes. That was I also made a noise. I was that person. The rest of the theater did not. I was in a packed theater, but I also there were points when I was laughing much harder and louder than anyone else as well. So I was probably the most annoying person in that theater. But yes, I did make a noise.
Yeah, I just it's not like I saw that coming. I mean, I remember he budged it in Age of Ultron, but I still wasn't expecting it, and I was just like, yes, that's awesome. And then of course the little nod when he ends up. He ends up with oh my God, why can't I think of the name of the
Stormbreaker?
axe? Stormbreaker, thank you.
Yeah.
And Thor's like, no, you take the little one.
You take the little one.
It's so funny. It's so perfect for them. Yeah.
Yes.
That scene got a huge cheer. Like that moment got all three screenings. Everyone erupted
Agreed.
when I saw it.
Oh.
I had like little fan squeeze just like pouring out of me. But the moment that gave me the most chills and like sequence of chills was when like on your left. from there. Like Sam pops up and you're like, oh.
When everyone starts walking
And
through the
then
portals.
when the portal starts coming, on your left.
So that's the time I cried, where it had nothing to do with, because I'm like, oh my God, they're all back, and I didn't expect it. So yeah, I was just like, oh yes, everybody's finally back, and just what a great way to do it. Have Sam say on your left. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was again a perfect way to reference back and like bring it up and like also I think like remind everyone where Sam came from all this time because of like what he's going to be doing now.
Yeah.
So like yeah, so like when and like also all three times when T'Challa, Okoye, and Shuri walk out through that portal as the first people, theater erupted every time.
My theater clapped at that time.
Yeah. I got chills when like all the armies are assembled. Thanos is like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
Like he looks scared in that moment, which is amazing. But like when you hear all of the Wakandans chanting Ibambe, that was like, and they use like because they have this, it's big, it's splash pages. It's like 14 splash pages in a row happening in this sequence.
It's like when they would be the fold-out poster, and it's just like you need like 4 pages to actually do it.
Well, it's just like that. There's a one shot, like a one shot that like goes through that crowd where you see like Black Panther fighting and then like Wasp flipping around and like Captain America like hitting somebody and then Giant Man comes in, like steps on somebody and then punches one of the Leviathans down.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what is happening in front of my eyes?
And watching Thor and Cap work together with Stormbreaker and the hammer, oh my God, it was just amazing.
Yeah, Cap working the shield and the hammer at the same time. I'm just like,
Cap
oh yeah,
working with that. Captain Marvel. Okay, so as we said, this is part 1
Yes.
of our 2-part review.
I have a whole thing I want to get into
We're going to
about
spend
this, so I'll
another
wait.
hour on Thursday at our normal time, Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific on Popcorn Talk. You can join us live on YouTube or catch us on your podcast apps, which you might be doing right now. We're gonna once we do that, we're going to talk about everything else. We're also going to have some fun classic guests coming in to join us. I'm not going to spoil those. But so yeah, we're going to talk about all the deaths. We're going to talk about Natasha and like what we think of that. There's some people saying that they consider that she was fridged in that moment. I don't know that I agree, but I want to discuss it with everybody. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about like how this movie worked as a sequel, as a finale. How does it all fall in line with how that rolled together? Some people are I've seen like asking questions about like, do you think that the little like there was a little moment between Carol and Rhodey where these two military characters like nod at each other? We have barely seen them like work together on screen, but there's a comic book romance as a basis. So what do we think of that? I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the dance more at the very end of the movie because it's like so much fan squeeing inside of me.
I need to talk about Wanda also up against Thanos. That moment I loved.
Wanda, and there's also big questions about the Marvel TV series, which you can get some more talk on that in a couple hours on Marvel TV Weekly with these two over here.
Basically 1 hour from right now.
Yes.
Over on AfterBuzz.
We will be here.
I have my own theories about that. One, I don't like. I'm gonna drop real quick.
Go ahead.
One, I don't think that it's obviously gonna be called Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and they only gave us a logo so that they could change it on us.
I think you're right.
Crazy pitch for WandaVision that I think is gonna happen. I think Wanda's gonna go nuts after all this, and it's gonna be the Vision comic book series from 2 years ago, but with Wanda at the forefront. She's gonna go crazy and like make herself a family out of the schematics Shuri downloaded, and it's gonna be real weird and have tons of AI questions, but it's gonna be like, Wanda, did you make children? Like, not like, did you build children for yourself? She's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
These are my children.
And then the Loki series, which like, because is it gonna be the traditional Loki from our universe that we lost, or is it going to be this Loki that vanished away? Check in with Marvel TV Weekly for a further discussion on that, and this Thursday when we talk about all of that and more as we do part 2 of our Endgame review. Oh my God. There's so much to talk about here, you guys. So hey, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Xia. Thank you, Christian. I'm sorry we had to jam all this in, but hopefully you got a little taste before we dive in on Thursday for even more. And be sure to send us your questions, the stuff that you want us to talk about on Thursday's show, because I've got some questions built up from those of you who sent us in, and we're going to take more so we can ask in the entire panel. Send it to Doom's Question Corner over Doom's Question Corner at gmail.com.
And also, there's a great chat going on. We have almost 100 people in there right now. I'm going to go through the chat after the show, and I'm going to try and isolate some of it. So we might not get to it on Thursday, but in the future, we'll address some of the things in there. There's so many good questions. We just didn't have time, but I want to get to some of them. So don't feel like they went for naught.
We just wanted to make sure that we got you guys something real quick so that we could just dump out all of our feelings, and then we'll be back on our regular time on Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been Marvel Movie News. Thanks for geeking out with us.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.